What if everything you've ever been taught about the beginning of humanity was wrong? What if the story of Adam and Eve, one that has shaped the faith of billions, was never meant to be a literal history, but a symbolic journey of spiritual awakening? The foundation of our belief in the Genesis account is being questioned like never before, and the evidence suggests a profound truth. There might have been humans before Adam and Eve. Imagine this for a moment. What if the first humans were not Adam and Eve, but those who walked the earth millions of years before them? What if the spiritual awakening we read about in Genesis, the moment humanity first knew good and evil, was part of a much larger, divinely orchestrated process of human evolution? Could it be that humanity's spiritual journey and biological evolution are more intricately connected than we ever thought? Why has the Genesis account of Adam and Eve been the focal point of human origins for so long, when discoveries are pointing to a much older human existence? Could there be something hidden, deliberately overlooked or misunderstood for centuries? In a time when science is constantly revealing new truths, can we still believe the story of Adam and Eve as the literal beginning of mankind? And more importantly, how does this challenge our understanding of God's plan for humanity? In this video, we will uncover the profound truth that humanity's origins might not be as simple as we've been taught. We will explore the idea of pre-Adamite humans and how evidence from archaeology, anthropology, and genetics points to a much more complex story of human existence. Together, we'll examine how the Genesis creation story might not conflict with these discoveries, but instead might be the key to understanding our spiritual evolution. You will come to understand why the story of Adam and Eve could be symbolic of humanity's spiritual awakening, and how the journey of pre-Adamite humans is intricately connected to our understanding of God's divine plan. By the end of this video, you'll have a deeper insight into how both faith and science reveal the truth about our beginnings, and how this truth can change the way we see our purpose in the world. I invite you to share your thoughts and reflections in the comments. Do you think the story of Adam and Eve is a literal account, or could it be a deeper allegory about spiritual awakening? If you feel that this video offers value and resonates with you, please like and subscribe, so you can continue walking with me on this enlightening journey of discovery. The more we explore together, the closer we come to understanding the vast, eternal love of our Creator. As we embark on this journey to understand the origins of humanity, we come face to face with a question that has haunted humankind for centuries. What is the true story of our beginnings? For millennia, we have been taught that the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden marks the beginning of human existence. Yet, the more we delve into the realms of science, archaeology, and theology, the more we begin to realize that the true story of humanity's origins may be much more complex than we've ever been told. What if the story of Adam and Eve, as profound as it is, isn't about the literal first humans, but about something much deeper? The awakening of human consciousness. What if the first humans were not Adam and Eve, but a group of pre-Adamite humans who walked this earth long before the garden was ever planted? The Genesis account, while central to many faith traditions, presents a story of creation that may not be a literal historical account, but instead a symbolic one. It is a story of spiritual awakening, of humanity's relationship with God and our capacity for free will. The fall of Adam and Eve is not merely about disobedience, it is about the beginning of human awareness, the ability to choose, to understand good and evil, and to walk with God in a way that defines the human experience. This shift in perspective can be enlightening and transformative. As we consider the possibility that humans existed before Adam and Eve, we realize that our origins may not be as simple as a single moment of creation, but rather part of a divine plan that stretches back through time. The existence of pre-Adamite humans challenges our understanding of creation, but offers us a richer, more expansive view of God's work in the world. These early humans, while not possessing the same spiritual awareness as Adam and Eve, were still a part of the intricate plan of creation. They too were part of God's divine design, and their existence set the stage for the spiritual awakening that would take place with Adam and Eve. But how do we reconcile the scientific discoveries of pre-Adamite humans with the truth of the Bible? The answer lies in seeing the Genesis story not as a literal historical account, but as a profound allegory that speaks to humanity's journey of spiritual growth and awareness. The creation story of Adam and Eve is not about the first humans in a biological sense, but about the first humans to truly understand their relationship with God. In this light, the story of Adam and Eve becomes not just about two individuals, but about all of humanity. The moment when we began to awaken to the awareness of good and evil, and the moment when we began to truly recognize our Creator. The evidence of pre-Adamite humans is not in conflict with this understanding, but rather enhances it. These early humans, through their very existence, were part of God's plan to bring humanity to a greater understanding of itself and of its Creator. It is in this larger narrative that we see the true story of human origins, one that is not confined to a single moment, but is an unfolding journey of spiritual awakening that spans across time. The journey of Adam and Eve, then, is the story of all of us. It is a story of choice, of growth, and of spiritual awakening. It is the story of humanity coming into its full awareness of good and evil, of free will, and of the divine relationship between God and His creation. This understanding challenges us to look at our own lives through a new lens, one that recognizes our spiritual evolution as part of God's eternal plan. In the midst of all this, we are invited to reflect on our own spiritual journey. How often do we, like Adam and Eve, choose our own way instead of trusting in God's plan for our lives? The choices they made in the garden were not just about eating fruit. They were about choosing to define their own understanding of good and evil instead of trusting in God's wisdom. In many ways, we are still making the same choices today. We are still grappling with the tension between our free will and God's perfect plan for us. But the story of Adam and Eve also offers hope, a reminder that even in our choices, God's love is unchanging, His grace is abundant, and He is always calling us back to His presence. When we embrace the idea that humanity's spiritual evolution is just as significant as its biological evolution, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of God's work in the world. The existence of pre-Adamite humans, far from undermining the Bible, actually deepens our understanding of God's creative process. It reminds us that God's plan is far greater than we can comprehend, and that humanity's journey is far from over. This journey is not one of perfection, but of progress. As we continue to grow in our understanding of who we are and why we are here, we are called to choose love, to reflect God's image, and to walk in His light. Our spiritual journey, like that of Adam and Eve, is one of awakening to the truth of God's love, of choosing to trust in Him, and of recognizing that His plan for us is far greater than we could ever imagine. And as we reflect on the lessons learned from the story of Adam and Eve and the evidence of pre-Adamite humans, we realize that we are not alone in this journey. We are part of a divine story, a story that began long before the Garden of Eden and will continue long after. Each of us is called to play our part in this unfolding narrative, to walk in God's light and to share His love with the world around us. In the end, the story of humanity's origins is not just about where we came from, it is about who we are becoming. It is about our relationship with God, our spiritual evolution, and the choices we make each and every day. And as we embrace this journey, we are reminded that, like Adam and Eve, we are always invited to return to God, to choose His ways, and to walk in his eternal love. What does that mean for you today? How can you live out your spiritual journey with a deeper understanding of God's eternal plan? Are you ready to make the choice to trust in his wisdom, to reflect his love, and to walk in his light? The journey is not over. In fact, it is just beginning. Every day, we are invited to grow, to evolve, and to awaken to the truth of God's love. And as we walk this path, we are never alone. God is with us, guiding us, and leading us into the fullness of his divine purpose. Let us choose to walk with him, as Adam and Eve did, and embrace the spiritual awakening that awaits us. In this journey of uncovering the truths of humanity's origin, we come to a significant crossroad between science and faith, one that leads us to examine the story of Adam and Eve in a new light. This is not simply about reconciling ancient texts with modern findings. It's about embracing the idea that our story, humanity's story, is far more intricate than we've been led to believe. The more we understand about the world around us, the more we see that the Genesis account may not be about the first humans in a biological sense, but about the first humans to experience a spiritual awakening, an awareness of good and evil, a recognition of God's presence, and a deeper understanding of our purpose. As we delve into this topic, one of the most fascinating revelations is the concept of pre-Adamite humans, beings that existed before the time of Adam and Eve. This theory is rooted in evidence from archaeology, anthropology, and genetics. Fossils of early hominids like Homo habilis and Homo erectus, dating back millions of years, have painted a picture of a human lineage far older than the biblical timeline of Adam and Eve. While some might see this as a challenge to the faith, it's essential to understand that this scientific discovery does not diminish the story of Adam and Eve. It enriches it. These ancient humans were part of God's creation too. They were part of his divine plan, prepared to make way for the spiritual awakening that would come later with Adam and Eve. It's vital to realize that the idea of pre-Adamite humans is not a contradiction to the Bible's message. The Bible tells us that God created humanity in his image, and that the creation of Adam and Eve marks a pivotal moment in human history. But what if this story was always meant to reflect a deeper truth about human existence? Our awareness, our consciousness, and our spiritual journey toward understanding God's purpose for us? What if the Genesis narrative, rather than being a literal historical account, is a divine allegory about humanity's awakening to our Creator? When we begin to think about Adam and Eve as symbolic figures, we start to see that their story is not only about the beginning of humanity, but the beginning of human spiritual awareness. Their decision to eat from the tree of knowledge was not just an act of disobedience. It was a pivotal moment in their spiritual growth. They became aware of the world in a new way. They were no longer just living beings. They became conscious beings, aware of their choices, their morality, and their relationship with God. In this light, the story of Adam and Eve becomes a reflection of the journey each of us is on. Just as they were awakened to knowledge, so too are we awakened to spiritual truths throughout our lives. But what does this mean for us today? If the story of Adam and Eve is not just about the first humans, but about humanity's spiritual awakening, how do we apply this to our own lives? The answer lies in recognizing that just as Adam and Eve were given the opportunity to awaken to their relationship with God, so too are we given that same opportunity. We are not simply biological beings following an evolutionary path. We are spiritual beings with the divine capacity to know and choose God. The choices we make, whether to walk in his light or stray from his path, shape our spiritual journey. Think of it this way. The pre-Adamite humans lived without the full awareness of good and evil, without the knowledge that Adam and Eve gained after their choice in the garden. They lived in God's creation but were not fully conscious of their spiritual existence. When Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, they didn't just acquire knowledge, they gained the ability to choose their path in a way that reflected their relationship with God. This is the pivotal moment of human consciousness, and it mirrors the journey we all go through. In every decision we make, in every moment of our lives, we too are choosing to awaken spiritually. The story of Adam and Eve, then, is not just an ancient narrative about the past, it's a living story that continues to unfold in our lives. As we reflect on this spiritual journey, we see that we are not simply evolving in a biological sense, but also in a spiritual sense. We are becoming more aware of God's presence, His love, and our divine purpose. The more we understand the depth of this connection, the more we realize that our story is a continuation of the very story we read about in Genesis. The choices Adam and Eve made in the garden, their awakening to the knowledge of good and evil, are mirrored in the choices we make every day. Each day we are given the opportunity to choose love, to choose God, to choose light over darkness. And in doing so, we continue the journey of spiritual awakening that began with Adam and Eve. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on the power of these discoveries and what they teach us. The evidence of pre-Adamite humans does not diminish the biblical story. Rather, it deepens our understanding of God's plan for humanity. These early humans were a part of the divine design, preparing the world for the arrival of Adam and Eve, who would carry forth God's plan for spiritual growth and awakening. In many ways, this reinforces the idea that humanity's journey is not one of perfection, but of continual spiritual evolution. We are living in a time of great awakening, where many of us are being called to deepen our spiritual understanding and relationship with God. The world is changing, and we are being invited to evolve spiritually just as our ancestors did, just as Adam and Eve did. The lessons from the past, both scientific and spiritual, show us that the story of humanity is far from over. It is an ongoing process of growth, awareness, and choice. Just as Adam and Eve had to make a choice in the garden, so do we. And in every choice we make, we move closer to fulfilling the divine purpose God has set before us. This journey of spiritual awakening is one that requires courage, wisdom, and faith. Just as Adam and Eve had to trust God with their future, so must we. We may not have all the answers, and we may face challenges along the way, but we are never alone. God is with us, guiding us, and leading us to a deeper understanding of His love and His plan for us. As we continue this journey of discovery, I encourage you to reflect on your own path. Are you awakening to the spiritual truths in your life? Are you making choices that reflect your relationship with God? The story of Adam and Eve is not just about the past, it's about us. It's about our journey to understanding, our choices, and our relationship with our Creator. I'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections on this. How do you interpret the story of Adam and Eve? Does it speak to your spiritual journey in a new way? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue to explore these profound truths together. If you found this video inspiring or thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Let's continue to walk this path of spiritual awakening, hand in hand with God's light and love. As we continue to explore the depth of human existence and the rich tapestry of God's creation, we come to an essential realization. The creation story is not a one-time event. It is a continual, unfolding narrative that spans both time and eternity. The story of Adam and Eve, often viewed as the origin of humanity, carries far more profound spiritual meaning than we have traditionally understood. Their choice in the garden, the moment they gained knowledge of good and evil, was not just the first act of disobedience, but the beginning of humanity's spiritual awakening. This awareness, this recognition of God's law, changed everything for them, and it changes everything for us today. When we delve into the story of Adam and Eve, we are not just reading about the first humans, but about the birth of human consciousness. Their decision to eat from the tree of knowledge was not simply about breaking a commandment. It was about the deepening of human awareness. It was the moment when humanity understood the capacity for choice, the ability to choose between good and evil, and the awareness of their connection to something greater than themselves. God. This awakening is not limited to Adam and Eve, but continues throughout human history, carried through the generations, calling each of us to the same spiritual realization. This realization, that we are capable of choosing between good and evil, and that our choices are deeply tied to our relationship with God, becomes a profound spiritual lesson. We are called, just as Adam and Eve were, to recognize our own capacity for choice and awareness. We are not simply biological beings who act based on instinct or survival, but spiritual beings, created in God's image, with the capacity for love, compassion, and divine understanding. The story of Adam and Eve invites us to see ourselves as part of a larger narrative, one that spans from the very beginning of time to this very moment in our lives. The concept of pre-Adamite humans adds another layer to this narrative. These beings, who walked the earth long before Adam and Eve, were not mere biological ancestors, but part of God's broader plan for humanity. Though they may not have had the spiritual awareness that Adam and Eve gained, they still had purpose, and they too were part of God's divine will. These early humans, living in a world not yet fully aware of God's laws, were part of the process of creation. Their existence set the stage for the awakening of spiritual consciousness, which would eventually culminate in Adam and Eve's recognition of God's will and their fall from grace. This understanding of pre-Adamite humans reminds us that humanity's spiritual evolution is not a sudden event, but a gradual process. God's work in the world has always been continuous, guiding humanity step by step toward greater awareness and connection with the divine. Just as Adam and Eve were given the opportunity to choose spiritual growth, we too are given that same opportunity today. The lessons from the Genesis account are not simply historical or doctrinal. They are spiritual lessons that invite us to reflect on our own journey of awakening. When we look at the story of Adam and Eve through this lens, we see it as a reflection of the choices we face every day. Just as Adam and Eve had the ability to choose their relationship with God, we too are called to choose. Every decision, every act of kindness or selfishness, every moment of joy or sorrow, reflects our ongoing journey of spiritual awakening. The story of Adam and Eve becomes not just a distant narrative, but a present-day invitation to choose love, to choose God, and to walk in His light. In our own lives, we often face moments of temptation and choice, moments when we must decide how we will live and who we will become. The lesson of Adam and Eve is that our choices matter, not just because they affect us, but because they shape the world around us. Every act of love, every decision to follow God's guidance, contributes to the larger spiritual narrative that began with Adam and Eve. This is the power of our choices. They are not isolated incidents, but part of a divine story that continues to unfold. Just as Adam and Eve played a pivotal role in humanity's spiritual evolution, so too do we have a role to play in the ongoing unfolding of God's plan for creation. This understanding invites us to consider how our own spiritual awareness is evolving. Are we aware of our relationship with God? Are we making choices that reflect His love and His will? The story of Adam and Eve teaches us that our spiritual growth is a process, one that requires awareness, intention, and love. Just as Adam and Eve learned to understand good and evil, so too must we grow in our understanding of God's will for our lives. In the midst of these profound insights, we are reminded that we are not alone on this journey. We are part of a long and rich spiritual lineage, one that stretches back to the very beginning of time. From the first humans to today, we are all walking together in this divine journey, learning to recognize God's presence in our lives and to live in accordance with His will. The story of Adam and Eve is a reminder that spiritual growth is not a solitary endeavor. It is a journey we share with all of humanity, with all of creation. As we reflect on these lessons, we are called to take action. We are called to choose love, to choose God, and to live in the light of His truth. The story of Adam and Eve, with all its depth and complexity, offers us a roadmap for our own spiritual journey. It teaches us that we are not defined by our mistakes, but by our capacity for growth, love, and redemption. Just as Adam and Eve were given the opportunity to choose, so are we. And with each choice, we move closer to understanding God's will for our lives and fulfilling the divine purpose He has set before us. The evidence of pre-Adamite humans and the spiritual journey of Adam and Eve invites us to expand our understanding of creation, of humanity, and of God's eternal plan. These stories are not just ancient tales, they are spiritual truths that speak to us today, guiding us toward greater understanding, healing, and love. And as we walk this path, we are reminded that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, a divine plan that spans across time and eternity. In embracing these lessons, we can find peace in knowing that our spiritual journey is part of a greater story, a story that began with the first humans and continues through us today. May we walk in the light of God's love, choosing to reflect His image in all that we do. And as we do, we will discover the deeper purpose and meaning that lies within our hearts, within our lives, and within the divine plan for all of humanity. As we come to the close of this journey, I am filled with a sense of awe and gratitude for the truths we've uncovered together, the revelations we've explored about the origins of humanity, the spiritual awakening of Adam and Eve, and the possibility of pre-Adamite humans, remind us of something deeply profound. Our story is not just one of biology, but of divine purpose, growth, and awakening. It's easy to feel small, lost in the complexity of life. But when we reflect on these truths, we realize that we are part of something much grander, a divine plan that spans time and eternity, weaving us all together in the love and light of God. The journey we've explored is not just about the past, but about the here and now, and how it affects our spiritual growth today. Every choice we make, just like Adam and Eve in the garden, shapes the path we walk with God. Their spiritual awakening, a journey of choosing good over evil, reminds us that we too are called to awaken to the truth of God's love in our lives. Their story is not a thing of the past, but a living testament to the choices we face every day, the choices that lead us closer to God or further away. Reflecting on the possibility of pre-Adamite humans, we realize how much more profound the divine plan is than we often allow ourselves to see. God's wisdom is not limited by time or human understanding. The pre-Adamite humans, as part of God's great creation, paved the way for the spiritual evolution that would culminate with the creation of Adam and Eve. In the same way, we today are part of an ongoing story, God's story, of spiritual awakening. It is a journey that is unfolding, just as it has from the very beginning, and it continues to call us toward greater understanding, greater love, and greater connection with our Creator. The evidence we've discussed is not merely about facts and fossils, but about an invitation. It is an invitation to grow spiritually, to see that God's presence has always been in our lives, whether we have been conscious of it or not. The spiritual evolution we are on is not an isolated event, but one that has been unfolding since the beginning of time. We are not alone in this journey. Just as Adam and Eve were invited to walk with God in the garden, so too are we invited to walk with him today, to choose him every day, and to reflect his love to those around us. As we reflect on all that we've learned, I encourage you to take a moment and think about your own spiritual journey. How are you choosing to walk with God today? Are you, like Adam and Eve, aware of the choices you are making and how they affect your relationship with God? Just as they were given the choice to follow God's will or their own, we too are faced with that same decision. It's a decision that requires courage, love, and trust in God's wisdom. I hope that the insights we've shared together have given you a sense of peace, clarity, and inspiration. If this video has touched your soul, if it has helped you find light in dark moments, or sparked a deeper understanding of God's purpose for you, I invite you to share your thoughts with me. Your engagement, your thoughts, and your support are priceless. If you feel that this video has brought value to your life, or if it has helped you find peace, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support allows me to continue creating content that reflects God's truth and love, and together we can continue to share his message with the world. Every small action, whether it's a simple like or a thoughtful comment, is a way for you to contribute to the light we are spreading here. It is a way for you to share in the joy of walking this path together, hand in hand with God's love. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your presence here, for your time, your energy, and your commitment to exploring these spiritual truths. Your support means more than words can express. As we continue to walk this journey, remember that you are part of something much greater than yourself. Your story is part of God's eternal story, a story of love, growth, and spiritual awakening. We are all connected, and every choice we make shapes the divine narrative in ways we may not fully understand. But we can take comfort in knowing that God is guiding us, leading us, and calling us to a deeper understanding of his love and purpose. If this message has resonated with you, if you feel a sense of peace, understanding, or even healing, know that you are not alone. We are all on this journey together, and with each step, we move closer to understanding God's plan for us. Your support, your comments, and your energy contribute to this shared journey of growth, healing, and love. Together, let's continue to walk in his light and share his love with the world. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for being a part of this journey with me. Your presence is a gift, and I look forward to continuing to share this beautiful, transformative path with you in future videos. May God's peace be with you, today and always.